And welcome to another episode of LSU Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. I am your host, Grant Sashray. Sorry for the delay. Of course, the live show was supposed to be on Monday, but there's been a lot of stuff going on in my life, uh, and look, I always like to be transparent, and one of the big issues why I had to delay the show for so late is because um, I've accepted a full-time position to be the beat writer for North Carolina on SI. And I'll be moving to North Carolina, going to be living in Chapel Hill, of course, covering UNC athletics for Sports Illustrated. And I'm really excited. But because of that move and because of that transition, I will no longer be the host of the LSU channel here on the Voice of College Football Network. Not only because I'm covering a whole different team, but also because I'm working for a whole different company. And because of the role I'm in, they're going to expect a whole lot from me. So I won't have time to even cover, let's say, North Carolina for the Voice of College Football Network, because I'm also going to be doing a podcast show over there on my new job. And that's why I've had to delay the show for so late. I couldn't say anything because I had to wait for them to give me the okay to let everybody know that I'll be taking on this new position. And, and I wanted to share that with you guys. I said that, I was going to tell you guys later in tweets of me delaying the show. So I appreciate your patience, but that's what has been going on. And I want to make it very clear to you guys. So this will be the second to last show where I'm going to be doing over here at the Voice of College Football Network. And then on Monday, that will be our last show. And then you guys probably won't see me ever again unless there's some breaking news. Because I got until the 21st, right? But I'm going to be focused on, mostly North Carolina athletics. So there'd still be a chance you might see me on the Voice of College Football Network but it will be as like it will be more of as kind of a guest role. Whether that's if the North Carolina Voice of College Football Network invites me on as a host for one of their live shows or whatnot, or let's say North Carolina's playing, for example, LSU, right? Maybe the LSU host want to have me on to talk a little bit about North Carolina. I will be more than willing to do that. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I can't believe I'm getting this job. I'm really excited to take this role. To be living in North Carolina, which is a fantastic state. Covering a marquee college athletics program that UNC has. To get to cover the North Carolina basketball program and to get to see Duke and North Carolina go at it. And that's pretty cool. Was on a bucket list for me, so I get to cover that. And of course, getting to cover Bill Belichick, which is something that I could never envision. Because who would have thought that he would ever become a college head coach? So yeah, there's that. But anyway, we have a lot to discuss for LSU. Got a lot of recruiting news. A lot of great news for LSU this weekend, man. A lot of great news. We're going to cover that. We're also going to continue the Mount Rushmore series with the offensive line and the defensive line. We're going to make sure to cover that in full. And I'm going to go over more of the criteria because I think I confused you guys because I really didn't go over the criteria for my Mount Rushmore. And I'm probably going to make it very clear where we get to talk about that. But that won't be the last segment. But in the meantime, kind of play a quick little video for you guys discussing our website, right? It's looks a lot better now, but this is kind of an old clip. I need to do a new one. But this is our website. If you want to go check it out, please do. And I'll be right back after this message. Hey y'all, this is Grant Sashray of LSU at the Voice of College Football Network. I'm here today to announce that the Voice of College Football Network now has its official website. It's been uploaded so you can look at all the latest news and content from the Voice of College Football Network. You can also look at different forums, channels, shows, and it has to show all the show schedules right here and the host. Make sure to check out the Voice of College Football's new website at vocfb.com. Once again, vocfb.com. And we're back. And of course, yesterday we had some major recruit news that dropped. Lamar Brown has committed to LSU. I actually did a breaking news video about that. Make sure to go check that out if you have not. It's already uploaded. It's gonna be under videos, and that was just some huge news that I broke down yesterday. And yeah, it's just LSU's had a lot of great great news for recruiting. But then there was a second one I didn't get a chance to cover. I was gonna hold that off until tonight's show, and that is DeAnthony Lafayette. DeAnthony Lafayette is a 6'1", 230-pound edge rusher, but he won't be playing on the defensive end. He'll be a linebacker mostly. And the reason why I say that is because he has been primarily recruited by Blake Baker. All right, and Blake Baker, of course, not only is the defensive coordinator for LSU, but he's also the linebackers coach for LSU. So it's interesting that the linebackers coach for LSU is recruiting an edge rusher. Why? That may sound interesting. Because he's going to move the linebacker, of course. DeAnthony Lafayette, 3-star recruit, the 34th best edge rusher in the country, and the 42nd best prospect from the state of Florida. Keep in mind, Florida's population is huge. So that, yeah, he may be 42nd but in the state of Florida, but there's a lot of people in the state of Florida. All right. But he finished his junior season last season with 73 tackles, 40 quarterback hits, and 17.5 sacks in 11 games. So he's an absolute monster coming off the edge. We're also going to play some highlights for you too. But like I said, so on here it says 6.5, 70 tackles, 18 tackles for loss and interception. So I don't know which one to determine the actual stats. Because I got that from 24/7, and 24/7 referred to max preps, and sometimes max preps can be wrong, but 16.5, 18.5, it doesn't matter. That is a lot of sacks in 11 games, right? So he also had 18 tackles for loss and an interception. But DeAnthony Lafayette, 6'1", 230, and he looks like a linebacker, right? I mean, he's probably what, 9th in the nation in sacks. Is crazy. But yeah, it says so on max preps. So that's pretty crazy. But you know, here he's you have him lined up as a defensive end with his hands in the dirt. So it'll be very interesting to see how LSU uses him, because it looks like they'll be recruiting him as a linebacker, and you know, he had his hand in the dirt. And so it'll be really interesting to see how LSU uses him, because instincts are very important when it comes to the linebacker position, right? And one of the things that Harold Perkins has really struggled with, and I think they're very similar, but the same size, actually, when you come to think about it. Harold Perkins, about his size, maybe a little bit lighter. But Harold Perkins, you know, is great at rushing the passer. However, when you want him to do other stuff at linebacker, he really isn't that great at, especially at reading plays. And I think moving him to star is great, because not only is he a great edge rusher, he can still do all the great things that Harold Perkins can do, but also he's a great at pass coverage, right? He's actually not a bad pass coverage linebacker. So I think he could maybe have a very similar role to Harold Perkins, because he's an edge rusher. Edge rushers really just go off the edge and you know, just attack the quarterback. So it'll be very interesting to see how Blake Baker uses him. And I know Blake Baker's defense likes to use a lot of versatility, so I think there's some ways you can use D'Anthony Lafayette, but D'Anthony Lafayette is a Tiger, for right now. Of course, you still got to a National Signing Day. Nothing is set in stone, so pen is signed to paper. But D'Anthony Lafayette, one of the top prospects from the state of Florida, specifically out of the Orlando area at Lake Nona High School, has committed to LSU. It's just a huge recruiting day for LSU. And after yesterday, LSU now has three number one players. Three players that are the number one at the position. According to Hayes Fawcett, LSU now, like I said, three recruits ranked number one in their respective positions. Tristan Keys, number one wide receiver in the country. Lamar Brown, number one athlete in the country. Lamar Brown plays both defensive line and on the offensive line, but he will most likely be defensive line at the end of the day. And actually, I think he even told me that he prefers to play on the defensive line. And then you also have Richard Anderson, who is the number one defensive lineman in the country. So you basically signed 1A, 1B of the best two defensive linemen in the country, and you also signed Tristan Keys. And Tristan Keys looks like he is locked in with LSU at the moment. He hasn't announced that he shut down his commitment, but from talking to him in the past, it just looks more and more that he's an LSU Tiger. It just does. And just an awesome weekend for LSU recruiting. But that's not... yes, those were the biggest wins. But for long term, who LSU has hired in the recruiting personnel department has been absolutely insane. They've hired three big-time names, and the last one's really the biggest, but let's start with the timeline, and that is LSU hired the coordinator of recruiting strategy, Kevin Bolden, away from Ole Miss. Kevin Bolden actually is a Mississippi native, and he's lived in Mississippi most of his life. He went to Southern Miss, you name it. But he worked with Austin Thomas when they were both at Ole Miss together. And Austin Thomas was the GM at Ole Miss, right? He was the GM at Ole Miss in between his two stints as GM under O, and then, of course, when he became the GM when Brian Kelly hired him back in Baton Rouge. And Austin Thomas and co. lured Kevin Bolden away from his home state to become the assistant GM at LSU. Another person they hired, Jeff Martin. Jeff Martin is a New Orleans native, Louisiana guy. He was previously at USC the last 4 seasons as the director of scouting and player relations at USC, but before he went to USC, he was a longtime employee of LSU for over 2 decades. He's a New Orleans guy. He's an LSU alum. He actually got 3 degrees from LSU. He got his bachelor's in mass communication, which is what I have. He also has he got bachelor's in that. He got a master's in sports management. He also has a master's in kinesiology. So pretty educated man, as you could say. And he is coming back home. He is coming back to serve as the executive director of player personnel. And then the next person, really, this is the biggest one, is that LSU is set to hire Ohio State's director of player personnel and Amy native Sam Petito. Sam Petito had been a part of 4 national title runs with Alabama, Ohio State, and of course at Grambling, which was a black national championship. But he was a coach in the high school ranks of Louisiana. And then he started coaching collegiately at Southeastern Grambling, and of course he started working with Saban at Alabama. Well, he also worked at Georgia under Kirby. Well, he worked at Georgia under Mark Richt. Then he went to Alabama and served under a decade under Saban as one of the main recruiting executives. And then he went to Ohio State, helped them win the national championship. Now he's back home in Louisiana. He was hired. So this is from Zach Nagy of LSU Tigers on that side. LSU football has made another impressive off-field hire, with the program set to bring in Ohio State Director of Player Personnel Sam Petito. Petito, a Louisiana native with an impressive track record, spent nearly a decade working under Alabama head coach Nick Saban prior to heading to Ohio State. He was hired by Ohio State in February of 2024, where he took on the role as the Buckeyes Director of Player Personnel. Now, Petito is set to return to Bayou State, where he will serve as LSU football's Director of Scouting and Personnel Strategy, according to Rivals. It's a notable hire for Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers. With Petito bringing in championship pedigree to Baton Rouge after working under Saban for 8 seasons in Tuscaloosa. Prior to his time in Tuscaloosa, Petito was the Director of Player Personnel at Georgia for 2 seasons. After assisting in building a dynasty with the Crimson Tide, the Amite Louisiana native will make his way back to his home state. Petito's track record speaks for itself after stints with the Georgia Bulldogs, Alabama Crimson Tide, and Ohio State, with LSU General Manager Austin Thomas spearheading the push to hire him to the off-field staff. LSU's now made 3 splash hires this week, with Petito joining Ole Miss. Ole Miss's Kevin Bolden and Southern Cal's Jeff Martin as a trio of new staffers set to make their way to Louisiana. Bolden will serve as LSU's Associate Director, Assistant General Manager, where he's set to have the opportunity to reunite with LSU's General Manager Austin Thomas. And Ole Miss hired Bolden in 2022, where he's remained at Lincoln for staff ever since, while handling various roles in Oxford. But yeah, that's just about it. That's really all you need to know. But Petito is a highly regarded figure in recruiting circles. And also, keep this in mind, Sam Petito was a huge reason why Blaine Bradford committed to Ohio State. So, even though Blaine Bradford shut down his recruitment and is staying committed to Ohio State, is there a possibility that LSU could flip Blaine Bradford from Ohio State? I don't know, but we'll see. But Sam Petito coming to LSU now makes me wonder if LSU could flip Blaine Bradford. I don't think it's likely, but it is definitely something to watch out for. So that's all the latest news in regards to LSU's recruiting efforts. And when we come back after this break, I'll explain to you why all of these, not only just recruiting wins, but the staff moves are extremely important for LSU's future. We'll be right back.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
So, this is why all these hires are very important. And look, LSU's building a monster of a class. It is building an absolute monster. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how much has changed for LSU, uh, and just recent memory. Just because it just seemed like LSU in terms of NIL wasn't moving all that great. It was disorganized. The boosters didn't really know what NIL was, and even if they did, they really didn't want to spend the money because they thought it wasn't worth it. It just was an interesting time for LSU the last few seasons. But when Bryce Underwood decommitted from LSU and decided to change his commitment to Michigan, and then signed with Michigan, I really think it changed a lot of people's minds on where LSU is with NIL. Actually, I think it was called the Bayou Collective or whatever they call it now. They never marketed that anybody could donate money. Everyone thought it was boosters were the ones that donated money. But in actuality, if you're a fan, you could donate $10 a month to LSU. And I don't think people even knew that. And that's what I mean by LSU just seemed so disorganized with everything. But then, I feel like because of the Bryce Underwood transfer and also already having Austin Thomas on staff to fix this issue and also convince the administration, the boosters, everybody to get involved in NIL, it's really paid off in a huge way. That's how they're able to get the number one transfer portal class in the country. That's how they're able to keep some of the top recruits to stay committed and keep the guys currently on the roster to stay committed to what LSU's doing. But not only that, but to stabilize LSU, right? It just seemed like LSU was not stabilized. And now you're starting to see the stabilization of LSU athletics. It's been incredible. For example, Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers offseason, number toward transfer portal class in the country. You hire away Sam Petito, Kelvin Bolden, and Jeff Martin. You land commitments from the number one receiver and athlete in America. Top 5 2026 recruiting class, and etc. I mean, just an absolute banger of an offseason for your Fighting Tigers. Just an absolute banger. And why? Because there's cohesion. There's cohesion. And that was one of the biggest things I was worried about when we were talking about President Tate leaving LSU to go to Rutgers. Because, he was quintessentially forced out, right? By the governor. And one of the things I was worried about, it was cohesion. Because I was worried that Governor Landry could put in somebody that really wasn't in cohesion with what the athletic department is doing at LSU. But it just seems like even if there is a change, even if with the person change, it just feels like LSU is in much better cohesion than it's ever been. Kelvin Bolden had worked with Austin Thomas at Ole Miss, so there's cohesion there. There's a kind of a set mantra of what they want to accomplish. The same things that Austin Thomas is doing at LSU, he was doing at Ole Miss. That's why Ole Miss has seen a lot of success in the last few years because of their plan to use the transfer portal to build that program up. Of course, you still have to use high school recruiting, and they acknowledge that. But you also have to make sure you build up the best transfer portal class as much as you possibly can, because Ole Miss is not really a hotbed for to land some of the top recruits in the country unless they're from the same Mississippi. So they have to use NIL. And so you have that. Then you hire Then you hire Martin. You hire Jeff Martin away from USC. He is from Louisiana, specifically New Orleans. He went to LSU. He worked in the football offices for over 20 years. And you bring him back. That's cohesion. Sam Petito. Yes, while he's never worked with LSU, he has helped build some monster programs. Whether it was at Ohio State, whether it was at Alabama, or whether it was at Georgia. It just there is finally cohesion at LSU when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to NIL, when it comes to the transfer portal, it comes to the revenue sharing. It just seems like LSU is a much better place. And you have to give a lot of credit to Brian Kelly for the job that he has done. You absolutely have to. And, I mean, just an incredible, incredible job by just the whole entire staff from the top to the bottom. Before we end the show, let's go over my next two Mount Rushmore. So, in the last we've been doing this Mount Rushmore series for a while. We first started with quarterbacks about a month ago, but since the summer started, we've really kicked it off. We've already did running backs and receivers in the last live show. I also released the clip of the Mount Rushmore LSU receivers sometime throughout the weekend. And now we're going to be doing offensive line and defensive line. And to kind of go through my criteria, because so people don't get confused. So when I do my Mount Rushmores, I try to keep it strictly through their college careers, right? For example, Justin Jefferson had a great career at LSU, but it wasn't as great as Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase actually outshone Justin Jefferson during that 2019 season. And while Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL, I decided to keep it strictly based off their collegiate careers, right? And I think if you factored in their pro football success, then Justin Jefferson would definitely be my Mount Rushmore receivers. But he's not. And that's not I'm not saying I'm knocking him down for that. I'm trying to keep it through the collegiate ranks. I'm also looking at how you impacted the game while you're playing in college, but then also the awards you won. For example, there might be a player that there's maybe two players who have basically about the same resume. However, if one player has an All-American compared to the other player, I'm going to give credence to the All-American player. Let's say there's a player that is they're both one-time All-Americans. Well, one player won let's say they won not the Lombardi Trophy, the Chuck McNair Award, which is given to the best linebacker in the country. I'm going to give it to that one linebacker than the other because he got rewarded for being the best at his position, if you get what I'm saying. So you're going to actually see this coming up when I talk about the offensive line and also the defensive line, but especially the offensive line because you're going to be watching the series like, whoa, he picked that player over this player. So I want to keep that in mind. So keep that in mind as I'm going through the list. But we're going to start off with the offensive line. And for the offensive line, it's hard not to mention Cable. Cable, what has been a staple of LSU's offensive line the last 3 seasons from 2022 to 2024. 3-time All-SEC, 2-time first team All-SEC. He was a consensus All-American in 2024, and also was given the Jacobs Blocking Trophy, which is given to the best offensive lineman in the SEC, and that was an award he actually shared with another player. I forgot the guy. He got drafted by the Saints. I don't know why. I don't know why his name's blinking on me right now. But yeah, he was awarded. He was given an award for being the best offensive lineman in the SEC, and that Kelvin Banks. I was about to say Kelvin Shepard, but I'm like, okay, no, that's not Kelvin Shepard. Kelvin Shepard played for LSU. So I wanted to make sure I got his last name right. But Kelvin Banks, he shared the award with Kelvin Banks, and those two were awarded for being the best two offensive linemen in the country, although they both, well, not the country, but the SEC. And they were both awarded to it, because apparently, I guess journalists can't pick one person to win an award. I don't get it. But anyway, next person we're going to bring up on the list, Andrew Whitworth. Two-time first-team All-SEC, an AP AP third-team All-American selection in 2005. He was a member of, he was a starter on the 03 National Championship team, LSU's first in over 45 years. And then he finished his career with zero, I repeat, 0 sacks in his last 22 games. The next person that is part of my Rushmore for LSU offensive lineman is Alan Faneca. Played from 1994 to 1997. He was a two-time first-team All-SEC selection. He was a consensus All-American in 1997, where he also won the Jacobs Blocking Award, which is given to the best offensive lineman in the SEC. I mean, he was instrumental in LSU's rushing attack. Of course, that was spearheaded by Kevin Falk. And if there's one person you could thank for Kevin Falk's just exciting play and just him being as one of the greatest LSU running backs, if not the greatest LSU running back of all time, you can thank Alan Faneca. And by the way, 210 pancake blocks by Alan Faneca throughout his career at LSU, which spanned 4 seasons. And this is where it gets a little controversial. This is where it gets controversial. And this is what I mean by my criteria, if you remember what my criteria is. Strictly going off collegiate career, and also how you impacted the game. And a lot of you guys may be thinking it's Kevin Y, but it is not. I just going through the list. I was trying to find a person that had a outstanding career, but also, what made this person different from other people? I tried to find that one person, because a lot of LSU offensive linemen are about the same. But I found one. And that is Ben Wilkerson, who was the starting center for LSU's 03 National Championship team, which was a part of the offensive line, along with Andrew Whitworth. Two-time All-American while he was at LSU. He was consensus in 2004, meaning that every single publication had him as an All-American selection in 2004, which is the year after they won the national championship. He was also a member of the first. He was also a first-team All-SEC selection in 2004 as well. And this is why I chose him, because like I said, awards are something, and it's like awards mean something. And he won the Remington Trophy in 2004, which means that he was the best player at his position in the country. He was the best center. He was voted as the best center in the country. And the reason why I voted him over Kevin Y is because Kevin Mawai was he was was a two-time All SEC member, but he was never an All-American. At least towards the major ones like the AP, stuff like that. He was never AP All-American or anything like that. And then he also never won an award. Ben Wilkinson was a consensus first-team All-American selection 04 and was voted as the best center in the country in 2004. That means something. And if you factor in professional accolades, then yes, Kevin Mawai will be in. But it's Ben Wilkerson because he was voted as not only an All-American, not only as an All-SC selection, and not only because he was a member of the 2003 National Championship team, where he was the starting center, which means you're the leader of the offensive line, but he also won the Remington Trophy, which is given to the best center in college football. Now let's move on to something that's a little bit easier. Now there's a lot of great defensive linemen throughout LSU's history, but you can only choose 4. And it was kind of hard, right, to pick all 4. I mean, now you guys can look at this and be like, well, I may not just agree with this and whatnot, but that's okay, right? And if you have different players in mind, leave them down in the comment section. But for my defensive line, Mount Rushmore, first person I'm going to have to name is Chad Lavallee. Chad Lavallee played at LSU from 2000 to 2003, but interestingly enough, he actually originally signed to LSU in 1998, but he could not play because he had low ACT scores. But what he did was, while he was trying to get his ACT scores up, he actually served as a correctional facility officer, which I found out to be pretty interesting. I did not know that. But he was a 2-time All-SEC selection, both of which were first-team selections. He was a consensus All-American in 2003, and then also was voted as the SEC Player of the Year in 2003. That season, he had 61 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, an interception, and a forced fumble. I mean, just an absolute monster year for Chad Lavallee, and he also helped guide LSU to its first national championship in 45 years in 2003, where he was a key member of that vaunted LSU defense. That was a top 10 defense that season. Another name that's going to be on my LSU Mount Rushmore for defensive line is Marcus Spears. Marcus Spears was one of the best defensive linemen and was a key member of the early 2000s Saints team, LSU teams. My bad. I'm sorry. And Marcus Spears, who was, by the way, opposite of Chad Lavallee, was just absolutely wrecked opposing offensive lineman. The Baton Rouge native, who's went to Southern Lab, who actually played both tight end and defensive end throughout his time at LSU, but he moved to defensive end. I believe it was his either sophomore or junior year. But in 2002, 46 tackles, 16 quarterback pressures, 3.2 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. And then in 2003, which was LSU's national championship season, 49 tackles, 23 quarterback pressures, 13 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 6 passes deflected. And he went on to earn first-team All-SEC honors that season. He also returned an interception 20 yards for a touchdown to give LSU a 21-7 advantage in their 21-14 victory over Oklahoma in an 04 Sugar Bowl, which was the BCS National Championship. He also was a consistent All-American in 2004, and like I said, he was a first-team All-SEC in 2003, but he also was first-team All-SEC in 2004, so two-time first-team All-SEC defensive lineman. And then he went on, of course, went on the NFL, had a long career in the NFL, and then, of course, now on ESPN, where you hear his professional football takes and his collegiate football takes. So, if you're a young guy, you just know Marcus Spears as a guy on ESPN, talking to ESPN, he actually was an absolute dog when he played for LSU. But the next person I want to talk about is Booger McFarland, another LSU, another talking head on ESPN. But he also was a great player himself. Was a two-time All-SEC. Was an SEC Freshman of the Year in 1995. First-team All-SEC selection in 1998. And also was a first-team All-American in 1998. He was a key member of LSU's defense. He actually was the Peach Bowl SEC defensive MVP in 1996. And he won. He was like I said, also an absolute dog. Booger McFarland, like I said, was earned first team All-SEC honors, first team All-American honors, and of course eventually became a first round pick. But he was one of the first players from Louisiana that stayed home and became in the 90s, especially because the 90s, that's when you started to see the first glimpse of LSU recruiting successfully in the state of Louisiana, inside their own state of Louisiana. Because for a long time, LSU had a hard time trying to keep guys in state, and Booger McFarland, along with Kevin Falk, were one of the first, some of the first recruits from Louisiana to make it cool to stay home in the state of Louisiana, and of course, it helped them a whole lot. But we got one more. We got one more person to talk about, and it is none other than Glenn Dorsey. Glenn Dorsey, one of the most decorated defensive linemen, not only in LSU history, but also throughout college football history. He is the only person on this list. I think actually maybe second, but he is one of the few guys on this list to make. I think he might be the only college football American, the college football Hall of Famer. Yeah, he is. So Glenn Dorsey is the only member of the College Football Hall of Fame on this list. Glenn Dorsey was just an absolute dog. I know I keep saying an absolute dog like a broken record, but that's the only way you can describe him. And he was a key member of LSU's defensive line, and he won all kinds of awards, and was also a key member of LSU's national championship team. Glenn Dorsey was a Lombardi Award Trophy winner, and he won the Outland, which is given to the best lineman, regardless if they're on the offense or the defense. He was the Bronco DeGursey Trophy winner, the Lott Trophy winner, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and a unanimous All-American in 2007. He also was along with his unanimous selection as an All-American in 2007, he also was an All-American the previous season as well, and was a two-time first-team All-SEC selection. Glenn Dorsey in 2007 had 69 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks, 3 pass deflections, and a forced fumble, which was, those stats alone were the reason why he won all those damn awards in 2007. That is going to wrap up today's show here on the Voice of College Football Network, the LSU channel on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Grant Sastry. Be sure to stay tuned with this channel by liking the video, subscribe to the channel, and then also click on the bell because it will notify you whenever we go live or whenever we release a new video. And also because recruiting season is always so crazy, we'll always have a live update in case somebody commits or something crazy happens. Because in the world of sports, something always is going to be a breaking news story because you just don't know what's going to happen. That's how crazy sports have been for the entirety of its existence. But I'll see you guys next week. The last live show that I'm going to do here, the Voice of College Football Network, will be on Monday at 6 o'clock p.m. And then after that, we'll have a new host. Hopefully, sometime soon. I have to talk with them to see who the new host is going to be. But I'll share that with you guys as soon as I possibly can. But in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. And as always, go Tigers.